Be sure and tell them Large Marge sent ya.
In the 90s, we were just teeny tykes. We went to movies and our bikes. We wanted to be DJs, but we were just teeny gals. So we went off to college and we remained as pals. 20 years later, we're still watching flicks and we're bringing you the favorite bit by bit. Sweetie and Sweetie are here to say it's the Large Marge Santa's podcast. Hey.
Hey guys, welcome to the Large Marge Santa's podcast, your favorite podcast, your favorite podcast where two sweetie sisters talk about their favorite flicks from childhood. I'm Sweetie with a Y.
And I'm Sweetie with an IE.
One in a week. Yeah, we did it.
As I said on Instagram, we got our shit together this week, which I don't have my shit together at all, but, silver lining of the pandemic is we have this remote option, right? So when we're a little short on time, we can just do the remote and still get the episode in. So I'd say that's getting our shit together.
Option.
I know. I miss you.
We should use it more.
You
miss me.
I'm
you
like,
saw me last week when we did the episode.
No. I just feel like always that our dynamic is better in person just because we can play off each other a little bit better.
Yeah.
But, that's okay.
I still don't get why you miss me. I'm confused. Anyways, so
I always miss you. So we stop living together.
Tonight, everybody, we have a 1995 classic movie, the one, the only Tommy Boy. Which, okay, huge error in this movie, I think, is that so Tommy's name is Thomas Callahan III. He's actually a trip because that's what it said on the door, right? At the very end, when that sweet guy is announcing Tommy to the company as the new president, he's like, Thomas Callahan Jr. What the? Like, what? No, that was his dad.
Yeah.
Ugh, man. It really bummed me out because I was like so excited he was a trip and they just didn't.
I know.
They didn't follow that thought.
I love the trip thing. I know a trip. He's a cool guy. Wow. But I just like that thing where you call people Trip.
Yeah, it's funny.
Who is a Trip. I also dated a Trip.
Oh my God.
He didn't go by Trip, but he said that people did call him that. And I actually had never heard of that until I dated this guy.
Amazing.
What
Thanks to him.
the heck was his name?
We're obsessed with trips. We should thank him.
Yeah. I forget what was his name now? Interesting. I don't remember. Okay. Oh, wait. I remember Harold something.
Okay.
Harold Jones or something the third.
Jones
Harold Smith. I think it was Harold Smith.
Okay.
Nobody Google him. Okay.
Too late. All right. So Tommy Boy, 1995, says Sweet Hay. Yep. This was a Chris Farley and David Spade joint. They were like a little comedy duo. I would say. They had a couple others. Was this before or after those other?
Well, I'm only thinking. I'm thinking Black Sheep is the main one where they were like the duo. But if you remember, they appeared in Coneheads together.
Yes.
But like not a duo. And then
did they do sketches on SNL together? Like I feel like they were synonymous. Well, similar to
they were both in it. SNL at the same time. So actually when they filmed this movie, they were still in the cast of SNL. So they had to fly back to New York when they were filming in LA. They also shared an office where the joke, fat guy in a little coat, came out of their time in that office, like writing and trying to come up with like funny stuff. So yeah, that's interesting. However, had some issues on this movie getting along and got into some fights, had some spats. Had some issues where they wouldn't talk to each other and they'd have to talk through the director. Yeah, it was just, probably just like spending too much time together. I don't know. It's just like, that's a lot. It's a lot of time. But yeah, this was definitely probably the biggest Chris Farley vehicle, and was supposed to kind of skyrocket him to fame. He only lived another 2 years, very sad. Chris Farley died of a cocaine and heroin overdose in 97, I think, end of 97. So that was like a real bummer. And, you know, people had slated him to be sort of the next like Belushi, basically. And he kind of had the same fate, which is, you know, those, what do they say? The brightest candle burns shortest or something. What is that like phrase, you know?
Depressing.
Yeah, it is, because they're just like, those people are just like cannot sustain themselves, like sustain life, because it's just, they're just too, you know, I don't even know what the like word is for it.
Yeah. Supercharged.
Supercharged. That's such a good word. But yeah, so him, David Spade, Bo Derek is in this movie. 10. Have you ever seen that movie 10?
No.
Apparently,
But-
Brian Dennehy is in it as well. The dad.
Who's that? Oh, the dad.
Yeah.
Wow.
I
Are they,
know.
like lovers in it, or he's just some guy in it?
I don't know. I've never seen that movie. I always kind of
that's
wanted to, but
well, that's where the famous picture of her is from?
yes,
That movie on the
coming
beach
out
with
of the
dreadlocks?
water with the cornrows. Yeah,
cornrows. Yeah.
yeah. She has like a
Wild
weird,
stuff.
face to me. I don't know. I'm just like,
Didn't like her hair in this.
I
Like,
hated
you
her
go
hair in
from
this.
cornrows to that.
yeah,
Like,
I didn't
what?
like her
Is
hair.
that
She has a
wig?
weird
What is
face.
that?
Yeah, just not into it.
Yeah.
Sweetie's favorite, Rob Lowe. I was going to ask you, as a Rob Lowe scholar, do you recall him mentioning this movie in his epic memoir?
He definitely like mentioned it, because I'm pretty sure that's why I remembered that I wanted to do this for the podcast and put it on there. I just have no recollection of what he talked about. It was like 80% the Outsiders, and then like -1% Tommy. He like said it for like a second. It's like, and then I went to LA to film Tommy Boy scenes or something.
So here's what I heard from Rob himself. Just kidding.
Oh,
no,
jeez.
but
He's
he
always spouting lies.
did this movie as a favor to
Okay.
his friend Chris Farley, but he
Yes.
was like on tap to do some other movie. What was it? So he couldn't. He like wasn't. He's uncredited, because when I was watching the
Yes.
credits, I was
too.
like, I thought Rob Lowe was in this,
Yeah.
and like
I was
it
like,
didn't.
what is this?
It
And then
didn't
on
happen.
IMDb, he's like not fucking there.
Yeah.
I'm like, what the fuck is this?
So
What is the
uncredited.
point of that? So you
I
don't get
know.
paid, but you can't get you can't get your name in it. Why can't we separate that?
Maybe it's like a SAG thing or a contract thing or something. I'm
gonna ask. I'm
What
gonna
was
ask
the
my
other movie
film-
he was
my
slated to
film
do? I
friends.
forget. So Matthew McConaughey almost did that role, because it was like it came up that maybe Rob like wasn't gonna be able to do it. Anyway, he did it. He's pretty classic in this. Classic like Rob Lowe, smarmy like hot guy.
Yeah, smug Rob. Yeah.
Totally. Julie Warner is the sort of love interest. Don't really recognize her from anything else.
Michelle. She's something to do with SNL. She's like some comedian person also. I
Oh,
don't
is
know.
she? Okay. But Dan Aykroyd, excellent little,
Zelensky.
like,
Not,
cameo
no
for him.
relation to Wayne Zelensky, we think.
Oh. Yeah, no, but
Should we ask?
no, wasn't
I
his
don't know.
in Zelensky in Honey I Shrunk the Kids spelled with a Z?
So is this.
No, this is S. It's like
No, that-
Zelensky.
No, it was Z. It was on the billboard. Z. Maybe Honey, I Shrunk the Kids is an S.
No,
I think it's the other way around.
no.
Anyways.
I don't know if you saw or recognize, but the Harriet the Spy Kid.
Yes.
Okay.
I was like, okay, because whenever I watch Harriet the Spy, I go down a rabbit hole trying to figure out what I know that kid from. And for some, maybe, is he uncredited in this too? Because why would I not have seen that and been like, oh yeah, he's that asshole kid in Tommy Boy.
Right.
Good one. Oh,
Who
I
also-
spotted a good one.
Oh, you
Oh.
did? Oh, okay. And Brian Dennehy, which I already said, who's like kind of like an old timey like classic actor. Who is your cameo that you spotted? I didn't spot anybody new.
So in the wedding scene, there's a guy sitting next to Chris Farley who looks exactly like Chris Farley.
Oh, his
And it's
brother.
brother,
Yeah.
Doug, who I think his name is Doug, but he was in the movie Together, which was like an MTV movie of like a fake boy band.
Oh, yes.
And his whole claim to fame was like, oh, I'm Chris Farley's brother. And I was like, oh my God, he's at the wedding. Like he's probably supposed to be like his cousin or something because he looks like him. Pretty funny stuff. I was really excited to spot that. But yeah, that's the general. Oh, and that like character actor guy who's like also in Wayne's World, maybe.
Okay, one of the like accountant guys. No.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The one that
okay.
always says inappropriate things.
Yes. Okay. I couldn't remember what he was from, but I agree. Yeah. Is it Wayne's World? I forget. Speaking of Wayne's
must
World, so the writers of this movie are Bonnie and Terry Turner, who wrote Wayne's World. So awesome. Well, I prefer, obviously, Wayne's World, one of my favorite films. Definitely, you can tell it's similar humor and similar like injection of pop culture references, which I just love. So funny. They're great writing team. Had to look it up. Husband and wife, not brother and sister, just so
Love
you
it.
know. Yep. And I think they had been involved in SNL stuff too, because I think that's how like
Makes
Mike
sense.
Myers met them, and like obviously all these dudes. Directed by Peter Siegel, who I was like, haven't really heard of him, but has directed some of my favorite movies. Here they are: Naked Gun, 33 and a half.
Okay. We haven't done that. We haven't done
I
any
know.
of those
We
yet.
have to do a Naked Gun. My Fellow Americans, we're going to do it
God.
someday.
You're obsessed with that
Untapped,
movie.
one of my favorite. I knew you were going to say that, but it's true. 50 First Dates.
Wait, is that the one where that's the one where they make up the president song and they're like,
Don't ruin it. Shh, don't ruin it. That's my
Yeah.
one big joke when we do that movie.
You've already told that story like 3 times.
Shit. Okay, well, it's fine. And then my second of 2 Adam Sandler films that I can tolerate, 50 First Dates. So
Oh wow.
yeah, great movies. This director also did some other Adam Sandler movies too. I want to say the football one. What is that
The
one?
Water Boy?
No, the other one.
Oh, The Longest Yard.
Yeah,
or the
Longest Yard, and then what the hell was some other one? Anyway, good times. So this time, so let's say like mid 90s, if you recall, seemed to be the time when like all these SNL alum or current SNL people were getting these movies, right? So you had like you had Black Sheep, and you had this one. You had obviously Adam Sandler had, which I compare to the Adam Sandler, Happy Gilmore, Billy Madison, those like kind of 2 main ones. You had Night at the Roxbury, you had Deuce Bigalow, Meal Gigolo, you had
Wayne's World.
Wayne's World, you had
Hello.
the Superstar, like Molly
Yeah.
Shannon one. So maybe those were like a little bit later,
Did
like
he
late
have like
90s.
a studio or something? Did Lauren have a studio?
I don't know, but I just remember like it seemed like every SNL, like I said, either like previous star, because you had like Coneheads, right? Or current star, like we said, like David Spade and Chris Farley were in SNL at the time and had to fly back while they were filming this. We're getting these movies, and like that's like all like now that there's every month there's like a new Marvel movie, you know, like that's the thing now. But I feel like back in the mid 90s, it was like, oh my God, every month it's like another movie based on a skit from SNL. So how much moneymakers was
deal,
SNL that prolific, or were the sketches that good during that like mid 90s time that they all could make like movies out
Well,
of
I
them?
think they were just like cash cow things. Like you bring those.
Yeah.
That's the appeal. Is like those movies usually end up doing pretty well.
And characters
box
too,
office.
because that's what SNL doesn't do now, is that they don't do like characters. They don't do like a set character.
Right.
It's all, it's all sort of like
Yeah. Nothing that you could
timely, like
build a movie
of the
around,
moment,
or-
current event kind of stuff, I feel like.
I mean,
so-
when's the last time I haven't watched SNL in like 10 years.
We
so.
watch it pretty frequently. We do not have the stamina to stay up for it, when it airs,
God,
but we
who
watch
does?
it the next day, like while we're eating pancakes. So
I still can't believe what time does it start? 11:30. That's insane.
yeah,
That's some
and it's
insane
pretty
shit.
long. Yeah, we almost never have watched it like in the last year live, but anyway, so yeah, so this just like reminds me of that time, like I said, when SNL was just like so prolific and they had all these movies. Okay, also reminds me of just how big of a star like Chris Farley was, how funny he was. Like I said, I think he was being touted as like the 90s like Jim Belushi. Wait, who's the
John
brother?
Belushi.
John.
Belushi's-
John is one who died. Jim is the one who's still alive.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Like the 90s John Belushi. And that sort of big guy comedy that, maybe we can get into a little bit after the
He's a
summary.
physical comedy kind of
Right. Physical comedy, but also like how interesting that is that men get this like big guy comedy like stereotype, which really doesn't exist for women. You
Right.
have Melissa McCarthy kind of trying to tap into that like a little bit, but not really wanting to now, because it's really, that's not the mood we have right now, I would say, in
Well, it
this
doesn't
country.
have to be like what defines you. Like
Right.
it's not like it shouldn't be a thing. It should just be like they're a comedian. Like we just
Right.
shouldn't even.
Yeah, but for Chris Farley, it definitely was that, and I think that is actually what drove him and kind of his demise, because he didn't want to be that anymore, and he like couldn't get out of it because it was his bread and butter. But I feel like he like wanted to do more. Yeah. And yeah, so I think that it just like reminds me of that time. And I just am sad, you know, along the lines of like John Candy, kind of same thing. Like, you know, wish we could have seen them do more. And those, a lot of times those people just don't make it. They just don't survive. Sad. Womp. Womp. Yeah, I think he was he was in his 30s, right? Or like just a little over 30.
I don't know. You're the one that does the research.
Yeah, I think he was like 33 or something.
Sweetie research.
Anywho, what is your historical reference point to this movie? When did you first see it? Like, what's your deal with it?
Yeah, couldn't tell you when I first saw it. It was just one of those movies that was always playing. I'm sure we caught it on HBO or something. And I would just always watch it when it was on.
Yeah.
I found it very funny, very enjoyable. Not too like, I think I had seen. Oh wait, Chris Farley wasn't in Joe Dirt, right?
No, David
Okay.
Spade. No, yeah.
Okay. I think
That's another
in
one we
the
didn't
past,
mention.
I had never been that enamored by David Spade or something, but
Yeah.
something about this combination really worked well for me. So I like it. I mean, I would quote it occasionally, I would say, like a light quote on this one. Not close to Wayne's World or something, but pretty sweet movie.
Yeah,
Pretty sweet.
same thing. I remember, again, I don't think I saw it like, just in passing, or someone was like, you got to see Tommy Boy, like so funny. And definitely remember kids quoting it like all the time. So I would have been in like middle school, I guess, when this came out. People like definitely quoting some lines. And I remember like the preview. So all the really funny bits I remember being in like the trailer. And when I watched it today, I was like, oh yeah, like I kind of remember this trailer and like all this part and this part and this part. So that's just what like stands out for me. But yeah, I think it's super funny. I agree that like the dynamic between Richard and Tommy is like so funny, and the way they like act off of each other is just perfect.
Yeah, it's like a tried and true, tested comedic dynamic is to have like this one big guy and then this little guy is like always a thing, right? Like I feel like this like Stooges were kind of like that. There was obviously more than two, but Abbott and Costello maybe I'm thinking, and so you know it was very very common. So
totally
it worked out.
And I feel like it's not something that I would necessarily like, but I do find Chris Farley like hilarious for like a couple reasons. So number one, so his physical comedy obviously is there. Like he's so frantic that like his movements and the jerky way he's always like moving around is just hilarious.
And the shouting.
The shouting is
something else.
The
I kept
frantic
being like, this
and
is,
the freak outs. Oh my God.
So good.
So
I kept being like, this is my favorite freak out. Oh,
Yeah.
and they'd be like, oh no,
I know.
this is my favorite
Yeah.
one. Be like, oh no, it's definitely the bees.
Oh my God.
And like,
oh right,
it was,
right.
it just like gets better and better. And I would say, so you're used to looking at Chris Farley obviously in those moments because he's the one that's, you know, bringing your attention to is brought to him, whatever I'm trying to say. But I was watching David Spade for like most of those scenes where Chris Farley's freaking out. And I would say that David Spade's probably holding it together approximately 65% of the time during those scenes. Like it's really funny to see him. Like I was watching him in the one where he sets like the little car on fire in that scene. And, like David Spade was just like he was like about to break every time. It was so funny.
I love to know if they filmed that, if that was like mostly improv. I'm sure like
had to have
been.
Like, he's just so
he's
all
over
that's
the
how
place.
he works. Yeah.
So and then but I also what I love about him is that he can then we'll dial it down to this like sweet little guy, and like the look on his face and his like little hair and his like chubby little cheeks. Oh man, like so funny. So you know he is like seems like a really sweet guy, like whether he was like that as a real person. Yeah.
Tommy's a real sweetie.
Yeah. I just found that like so hilarious. So yeah, he was a gem, man. Really would have been, you know, who knows like how much he would have like been able to grow out of that, but like certainly loved like the little bit of that like freaky freak outness that like he does have. It's just so funny. Love it.
Yeah.
R.I.P.
So, R.I.P. Love you, Chris.
Yeah.
All right, let's just jump in then. Get it out. Let's do it.
It's time for the sweetie synopsis. Yeah, sweeties. You know, a lot of people go to college for 7 years. Yeah, they're called doctors.
Okay.
Did you eat a lot of paint chips when you were a kid?
Why?
Why?
I thought you were going to do the classic taglines of "Son of a," I'm
yeah.
okay.
Son of
or
a.
"Holy shnikes."
Shnikes.
You
Well,
know,
those are like
classic.
easy ones. There's also
Classic.
I was like writing all these down in the very beginning, and I was like, I can't do like all the ones in the beginning. That's like so wrong. And I feel like a friend of mine used to do that one where he's like, he gets off the plane and he's like, oh, like, why is my dad here? And he's like, oh, your dad was here, but you missed the flight or something. And he's like, no, I called. And he's like, when did you call? And he's like, just lying, you know. He's like, what number did you call? And he's like, 72195.
Yeah.
And
Was that
Richard's
a
like,
niner in there?
niner? What were you using, a walkie-talkie?
Yeah, I remember that. But it's also maybe confused with the Super Troopers one, where
Right.
they also like do the niner. I don't know.
Okay,
I
maybe
don't know.
that's what he used to quote then.
Yeah.
Some friend of mine. Who knows who he is?
Probably
Maybe it
Brendan
was
Lyons.
Harold
Or
Smith.
Tom Akey. It was probably Tom
I think it was
Akey.
Tom Akey. You're right.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was.
Niner.
All right. Thomas Callahan III is the son of Thomas Callahan Jr., obviously. And his dad owns Callahan Auto Parts, which, you guessed it, they make auto parts in Sandusky, Ohio. Midwest, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what blue-collar town, obviously run in part by this factory. Everybody works at this factory. It's like a family-run factory kind of thing.
Remind me of, if you guys listened to a couple episodes ago, Mr. Mom. We had that whole conversation about factories. Brought me back.
True. There was a factory there.
Seems unsafe.
Still seems pretty unsafe there. All you have is a hard hat. Interesting.
Which they were not wearing correctly, I feel like. They were like floating on their
Well,
head.
and
Did
then
you
Tommy
notice
like
that?
immediately walked into the steel beam. So it like, what? Man. So Tommy has just graduated from college by the skin of his teeth after, I guess, 7 years.
I got a D+.
Oh my God. That's like, so
I thought
I
a C
love-
was passing. Just anything not an
No.
F is passing.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
I mean, like, I guess technically.
Yeah.
But I love his delivery of, he does a couple of lines like that where he like, you think he's upset about
Yeah.
something, but then he's like, awesome. Like, so like that one's definitely my favorite when he's like, oh, D+. Oh my God. I passed. And he's like psyched about it. And the other one is, shit. I forget. I don't know. But there was another one where he does that same thing. After the deer comes out of the car, and he's like, that was awesome. Like, it's good. It's good delivery. So he passes. So his friends are like, what are you going to do now? He's a partier, smoking bongs, drinking beer. I love like the beer bottle seems so tiny in his hand. Like, it was just like, was that real? Beer bottle? It just like looks so much smaller than the normal one.
Apparently, you know, the famous, well, like kind of the funny scene in the beginning where he like passes out on the table.
Yeah.
And like falls forward, like a kind of classic like pratfall. That he like wanted to do all his own stunts, and they're like, you cannot do all your own stunts, like don't do that, like really dangerous, you have to be trained, whatever. But he refused to let like anyone else do it, and he did it himself. Scary.
He was okay. He
Was okay.
Good. Thank God. So he goes home he thinks he's gonna, has a job at his dad's dock, shipping dock or whatever, is like kind of like a low level job. So he comes home and is picked up by his dad's like lackey, Richard, who is David Spade. And he's like a very smug, like little guy who thinks he's the shit, but is
Well, they
still
knew
a
each
little
other
guy.
in high school or in school.
Knew each other in
remember?
high school.
Yeah. So there is
Yep.
a flashback when like little Tommy like running to, he misses the bus, and like Richard is, you find out he's like the little annoying kid who he went to school with, right?
Which kid was he in the beginning?
It's like riding the bike while he's
But he wasn't like mean to him.
He might have said something. Yeah, he might have said something kind of mean. Yeah.
So so they have this history, and Richard knows that Tommy is basically a big dope. So that's the history there. So they come to the factory and and see all the old buds, all the old people that work there. His dad shows him to his very own office with a window with his name on the door. Whoa. So I miss like the actual title of the job he gives Tommy.
Yeah. I don't
It's
know.
interesting because Tommy doesn't have any experience except for like working at the dock. So like nepotism at its finest, right?
Oh,
So-
you got a window with an office.
Yeah.
You've been here for good 10 minutes.
You got a window with an office.
You got an office.
Just giving
with
people windows. You might get an office if you're lucky.
I'm
Could just be a window, though.
Not really.
But yeah, so I mean, pretty soon. Oh, okay. So he goes home. They live in this like giant sprawling mansion. You find out that his dad is engaged to this like supermodel older woman who like emerges from the pool and like in her very Bo Derek state. And her name is Beverly, and his dad is engaged to be married to her like tomorrow.
No.
Interesting that he didn't tell Tommy any of that. Like I know we didn't have cell phones in the 90s, but we
That's
had
true.
phones, people.
Yeah.
We had phones.
Yeah.
Very interesting. And she also has a son named Paul, played by Rob Lowe. And Tommy's psyched. He's like, I've never had a brother. I'm so excited.
So
He's like
cute.
so sweet about it. So this big wedding is happening. Very joyous event, very fun. His dad calls Tommy on stage. They do this like cute father and son karaoke basically to Ray Charles' song.
What'd you say?
What I say?
What I
or, like,
say?
whatever.
That's good.
It's going great.
Oh.
The haze and the hose. It's going great.
Oh.
And then classic, the dad like falters and you're like, oh no. And then he goes down, heart attack, boom, he's dead. He's dead.
I just want to say for a movie, you're not like, oh, look at that shot. That's cool. I did really appreciate this shot where like they all are over his body after he collapses at the wedding. And then it just shifts to them being like over his casket. And they're all in like the same dressy clothes, but obviously like black or like a suit or whatever. Thought that was like a brilliant cinematic
touch. Great touch. But very sad. So I
Bagpipes,
remember,
man. Ooh.
yeah,
Gets
always
me
get
every
you.
time. I almost cried. I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna tell you the truth
Well, I
right now.
remember, like when we were originally seeing this, obviously our father hadn't died, but I still remember being very like upset by this scene when I was little, and I thought it was the saddest thing.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to look back on and be like, oh man,
It was
now
his
my
buddy. I mean, he
dad's
didn't have a
dead.
mom. He was really he doesn't have any
Yeah, I guess
siblings.
the mom,
It was all he had.
It sounds like the mom had died like a year or two earlier. So, yeah, sad stuff. So right before he died, his dad had got taken out this huge loan to pay for their new brake pads division. So like that's the hot topic. So the people meet after the funeral and they're like, okay, we're in trouble because he took out like too big of a loan. Like we're tanking our stock. I don't know, like business blah 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 business banks. I don't know. And so come to find out that like Tommy believes the way they're going to save the company is he's going to go on the road with Richard and sell these brake pads as his dad would have done. So his dad usually goes on this like annual sales trip, I guess, through the Midwest and to like sell to all these places. It's interesting. I mean, it seems like a pretty big company. I'm surprised that like the president, founder, whatever, is the one selling the actual brake pads.
well,
Very
he was all about
fascinating.
the family business and the family touch and stuff.
I know, but like, I don't know. Like, just hire somebody else, bud. Maybe that's why he had a heart attack. He's doing too much, going on these fucking road trips with
He
deer in the
enjoyed
road
it.
and
He had
shit.
the relationship with all these,
yeah.
auto
So-
parts people.
So everybody thinks the company's pretty much doomed. Now we start getting wind that there's a sinister plot has developed between Beverly and her alleged son Paul, who you come to find out is not her son but her lover, and they have a criminal history and they're obviously con artists trying to get the money. So the plan, I guess, was just to marry him and then divorce him and like take him for like
Bleed
tons
him
of money
dry.
in the settlement. That unfortunately does not come to pass because the dad passes instead. And they think that's good news because that means that, and this is what I was confused about because I was like, that's good news. Like she wasn't in his will or anything yet. So the only reason she has his shares is because they were married, but like if she wasn't in his will, then like that doesn't make sense.
Must be something with spouses, and she would have gotten that just from being his spouse or something. Yeah.
So I guess but so the plan was she was going to have control of that, and then they were just going to sell the company.
Well, no. So remember, her and Tommy have the same amount of shares or whatever, but Tommy gives his up. As collateral to keep to get the loan for the brake pad like stuff. So he gives his away. So that means like that he doesn't have any like say really in the business. Like she has all the shares or whatever.
Right. But what was their end game? Like what was the con? Was like to get money from the sale of the company?
Yeah. And then I guess just like disappear. I mean, just like disappear. They were going to sell the company to Dan Aykroyd and then be like, see ya.
And then she was going to pull the same con on Dan Aykroyd and then get that money. It was probably a pyramid scheme.
Oh, wow.
I don't know. Wow. So that's kind of what's happening in the background, but nobody knows really about this.
Right.
So Tommy hits the road. He's a hopeless salesman at first, really like loses his cool at all costs, has no experience selling anything. Richard's constantly making fun of him for his weight and his like stupidity. The car progressively falls apart, very similar to Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, where Tommy just keeps doing stupid things. So like he fucks the door up at the gas station, which like I always, because that pole is always at like every gas station. And I'm always like thinking about that scene if I pull up a little too close to that and I can't like quite open my door all the way. I'm like, oh man, just like Tommy Boy.
Well, I was thinking like what situation would I back up a car with a door wide open like that?
He just doesn't think. He just like is too all over the place and like, not finishing his thoughts before moving on to the next
What
thing.
did you do?
Yeah. It makes it seem like that's like something I would do for sure. Is like if I broke something, I'd like put it back on and be like, I'll just make this person think they did it. Like that time that Sonny and Nikki like threw up all over the kitchen floor and I came home from school and like saw it and I was like, oh, I'm out of here. And I left and like went back to school. And then you called me and you were like, oh my God, there's barf everywhere. And I was like, oh my God, awful.
And we didn't have any paper towels. The dogs had got into, someone made peanut butter fudge. And so obviously like anything sweet, like the chocolate, bad news for dogs. It was like a peanut butter fudge barf ocean in the kitchen. I'm not even kidding you.
It was so upsetting. I was so upset.
Our old dog like could barely like walk and she kept like slipping in it and falling. It was so terrible.
Oh no. Oh man, classic.
I know.
But yeah, I love that scene. So basically, the rest of the movie is kind of just like a buddy road trip comedy where like you're going through all kinds of shenanigans. It is actually, I would say, pretty similar to Planes, Trains, and Automobiles in the fact that like you have like one kind of straight guy, and then you have this like kind of oaf who's like making all these mistakes and doing these things. But in the end, they come to
learn
like
to
love
love
each other and become friends, kind of thing. So that's like the main plot point, and obviously we'll talk about like what some of those shenanigans are probably in the next segment. Eventually Tommy starts turning things around, and he starts using what he's good at, which is like being relatable and like his comedy and like bringing people in. So he starts using that to his advantage, and they start making all these sales. So they're like, "Hey, we're going to save the company." So Paul and Beverly are none too pleased about this. And Paul's like, don't worry, we'll fix it so that they actually aren't making any sales. Like, we'll disable the trucks. He tries to, like, shoot the tires of the trucks. It's like some, like, harebrained scheme. It's crazy. There's dogs. It's like, whoa.
Is that what I heard his ear? All of a sudden I saw this scene where his like, ear was bandaged.
I think the dog, like, bit his face off or something. So he's like, all right, forget that plan. So then he goes into the shipping center, which, again, this company is, like, very hacky, I would say. Michelle, the one woman who works at this company, is the shipping person, and she doesn't like filing cabinets, so she has developed like a bank tube system. What is that called?
That's what I was gonna say. I was like, what?
And like sucks up orders into that. So like all the orders come through her. So Paul breaks into her office and then changes the shipping addresses of like all the orders that Tommy just made. So they're all going to go to the wrong place, and the customers are all pissed, and they start canceling the orders because they think that's a sign that the company is not in tip-top shape. So company tanks. They're going to have to let everyone go. The only thing they can do is sell the company to the, what's his like tagline, the muffler king of Chicago or something, not the sausage
king of Chicago.
Wasn't there like a
Abe
false
Froman.
rumor that like he was related to Abe Froman, or like was like competing billboards or something?
Funny.
So they're gonna sell the company. So super sad. Tommy decides, hey, we got to save this. I'm going to save this company. My dad would have wanted this. We're going to Chicago. We're going to convince Zelensky to not sell the company because we're a good company. We're going to save them. So then, in tandem, Michelle's brother, Dwayne, is a cop. And she sees Paul and Beverly like, making out at the airport. And she's like, sick. I'm going to look into that. That's very suspicious. Calls her brother. They run a police report or whatever, search the records. They have records. They see that they're not who they say they are, So also she's married to this guy, Paul, not just lovers. They are married, which means that Beverly's marriage to the Tommy Sr., not valid. Not valid.
Polygamy. This ain't Utah.
So they come in with that knowledge after having tried to appeal to Zelensky and it fails. They come back, this time with television cameras, because in a very funny incident, Tommy's trying to get everybody's attention and says like exactly the same words that like a bank robber says before they hold up the place. And so everyone thinks that he's holding up the joint. So that's why the TV crews are there. But he takes them in, and then they do this thing where he's like, Zelensky, you're the family. And he like appeals to his like corporate image of like that he's put on the television with these commercials of like whatever. So Zelensky agrees to buy however many brake pads they needed to sell that they like then lost after making the sales and then losing them. And he's like, what the hell? I'm going to own the company in 5 minutes anyways. And they're like, oh, really? And it turns out they dumped the police report and the facts that Beverly's already married. So her shares are no longer hers because they're not valid. So that means they go back to Tommy, and then he has control. So he says, we're not selling, motherfucker, and we have all this money from the brake pads I just made you buy, so we're fine. Save the company. So everybody's all excited, super sweet. Tommy becomes the president, the new owner of the company, and he's, lives a happy life with his girlfriend, Michelle, again, only woman in the movie, so other than a waitress, and a girl who takes off her clothes at the pool. So,
so random. Well, apparently David Spade said both her and Chris Farley dated during the shooting of this movie.
Maybe that's why they were talking.
Maybe that's why they got into a fight.
Oh my God, that is some hot.
No, they got
goss.
into the fight because David Spade went out with Rob Lowe for a drink or something and didn't tell or invite Chris Farley, and he got really pissed. And then he threw David Spade against a wall or something. It got violent. He was a jealous guy, I guess. Rob was his friend.
Rob was hot. What can I say?
Rob was hot.
But yeah, that's the movie. Super sweet. Obviously, just a lot of shenanigans kind of movie.
Yeah.
Where you're kind of thinking could this get any worse? But then it really turns around, and
Yeah.
I love a movie where there's that kind of arc where you go from being the worst at something to hey, you're actually pretty good. It's always sweet. It's always a good time.
It was sweet. I mean, I kind of lost, I don't know, I was a little bit distracted when I was watching. I'm like, what's going on with the business end of this? I just couldn't
well,
follow.
that's always us in business. So just in one ear, out the other. I don't know. Blah, blah, finance.
But yeah, love the road tripping part. And obviously as soon as you get, they're pretty much together the whole movie, but David Spade and Chris Farley together, So fun.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So as we said, like super quotable. Everyone was like quoting this movie, and there's just some really like key famous scenes in this that I just feel like always stuck out to me and what I remembered from it. And you probably have some too, and they're probably the funniest scenes.
Yes. Yeah. So, as I said, I love Chris Farley's freak out scenes. So my first favorite scene is when he takes Paul cow tipping, and then they fall in the cow poop and mud, and then they have to like rinse off at the gas station, and Rob Lowe sprays Chris Farley with the hose, and he starts doing like the maniac thing, and he's like, I'm a maniac, man, and he like does like the crazy head like thing. Oh my god, it's so good. And then that's when he says the line that did you eat a lot of paint chips when you were little? Why? Which is like a common recurring line thing. Yeah, that's my first favorite scene. Now you tell one.
Okay, and then mine is immediately following that, the fan scene where there's like a big fan in his office, and you like Richard is coming upon him, and you just hear this like like someone talking into a fan, and then you hear him go, Luke, I am your father. Like so funny.
I would
and
always
then
do that.
Richard says something like mean to him, and then he has this like little robotic arm or something, and he's like, whatever, Richard, blah blah blah, and then he like makes the robotic arm do like a middle finger when like Richard's leaving.
It's good.
Very funny.
It's good. Yeah,
It's good,
I like
it's good.
that. I always used to do that into a fan.
Yeah, me too.
Remember we had that giant sketchy fan.
Yes,
in the
from like the
kitchen, and we would always do it.
1940s.
Yeah, you're like this would definitely chop my head off if I stuck it.
We talked about this
even a
fan
little
before.
bit.
So like when we grew up, just from like the time I feel like that our parents were kids and like what they inherited from their family and stuff like that. So we had all these like old, still functioning appliances / like tools or whatever, let's say. Like we had this ancient like jar opener, can opener, and this ancient fan which had, okay, you imagine a fan that's mostly like plastic or metal, right? Like the fan blades, and then around it is like a metal thing. This had like fabric around it, remember? It was like a net. It was like you would stick, like we had that as children, like sticking our hands in there.
You were responsible children.
Oh
I didn't
my
start
God.
throwing my Polly Pockets into my fan until at least 5th grade, and like I knew I wasn't gonna put my fingers in there. Although I did do that in my fan because I knew it wasn't, but I would never do that in that giant one because it scared me.
It was a
like
scary fan.
Yeah.
I mean, it worked really well, and clearly it was like
airplane
50
propeller.
years old. But
it was always
yeah.
so dusty though.
It was so,
and
'cause
like
it was
we never
fabric.
cleaned the inside.
How could you clean it?
Well, you were supposed to take it off, like the netting, and then clean it. I don't know, vacuum it. I don't know.
Yeah, it was wild. I'm just gonna say it was wild.
Yeah.
But that was a great fan to do it
Fans.
too. I agree. I still like
That's our
doing
segment
that. I do that to
on
the
fans.
baby sometimes. Like speaking into a fan, be like, ow, ow, ow.
Yeah. My next favorite is, so like his first like really fail sale is like you think he's almost gonna convince this guy, or like maybe he'll have like some luck. So
Because the guy
he's
says
like,
maybe, right?
oh yeah, because he's like maybe.
Maybe.
He's like, well, let me tell you what maybe is like. And then he's like, this guy has like an old like antique toy car on his desk, and so Tommy takes it and is like, imagine you're driving along with your children, and he's like, la 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 la, and he's like, and you see something in the road, you have Callahan brake pads, so you stop, phew. And he's like, now let's see what the other brake pads are like. Oh my god, and then like creates this accident, and like just the things that he's saying are just like so funny, like, oh my god, humanity. And
Favorite
then
part of that scene. Sorry, you go.
Okay.
You might be saying
and
what I have
so
to say.
then and then he takes off like a lighter from the guy's desk, which is like those old school, like not a Zippo, but like whatever those were called, like torch. It was like a torch basically, and like burns up the car, and then the guy is freaking out because obviously he has like some connection to those toys because they're like on his desk. They're probably expensive or like sentimental.
Antique.
Yeah, antique. And Tommy's just like fucked it up. It's dead, and like the guy's face is just like, he's like, get out. And so like that's the end. But yeah.
So my favorite
Is that
part
what you
about
were
that
gonna
scene, no, it was that like just when you think he's like done with it, he takes it like 2 steps further. And my favorite is when he's like, and then like the EMTs arrive and they're like, oh my god. And then the new EMT is like puking in the woods. It's like so bad. Like he takes it he takes it like 20 steps like past, like the joke is done and it's so funny. But he takes it like 20 steps further past that. So funny. So
you
good.
know, like it had to have been like improv that stuff because it was probably
they just,
like,
like,
different every time or something.
kept rolling. Yeah.
Yeah, great scene.
Okay. Next one, probably the most famous, and one that I remember and still do literally anytime I try on a coat that's too small, is Fat Guy in a Little Coat, which I think like Chris Farley is known for basically. And as I said, like him and David Spade shared an office when they did SNL. And this was a joke they came up with. And then one that Chris Farley would always use to like kind of prank David Spade. So we'd be like, oh, I got a new joke. And then it'd always just be Fat Guy in a Little Coat. So they like loved it so much that they're like, oh, maybe like let's use it in the movie. So like they're in the hotel room and like they're kind of starting to get along at this point, and he puts on David Spade's coat and he's like Richard. He's like, no, don't do it. He's like, Richard, and he like puts on his coat and he goes, fat guy in a little coat, fat guy, and he like keeps going with it and sings it even like a little bit differently each time.
And the coat is so little on him. Like it's just so, it's like the beer bottle, but like this little coat.
And he's like winning Richard over, but then he like does one false move and he like rips it open in the back, and so it like literally splits in half, like the coat. Oh man, so funny. I love that. So literally anytime that like, you know, I'll be up and down sizes. I've been thinner or whatever, and I have a small coat and I'll put it on now and I'm like, oh, this coat's too small. And I'm always like, fat guy in a little coat.
Yeah, it's so good. It's a classic bit. All right, I guess my next one is the bees. So after they find out that all the orders were fucked up and the company's gonna have to be sold, they go out like drinking their woes away, and Richard gets like super drunk, and he's always the guy that like has it together, so he's like always very straight laced. So this is very unusual to see Richard in this way. He's like a backwards hat on, like he's just like very drunk, very much a guy who doesn't usually drink drunk. So that at some point Richard's like, I got news for you. He's like, the beer's coming back up, and then he like pukes in the car. Is that what happens?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then Tommy's like, oh shit, and he like swerves the car, and as luck would have it, they had just passed a cop waiting in the shadows. And so the cop was behind them at the time and sees them do this like zigzag and is like, that's it, it's go time. So they pull him over. And so Tommy's like, great, Richard, like cops, like there's this beer, this whole car smells like beer. They're never going to believe I wasn't drinking. And I'm like, well, were you? Like, can you take a test and pass it? Like, what's the issue here?
True.
So instead of that, he's like, I got an idea. And he's like, jerks the car over and does all this like erratic movements, like drives it on this like patch of desert. Where are we again? That like that is the landscape.
Like a
That's
field.
my question.
No, it's like
a
fields.
field.
Yeah.
I thought it was the desert.
No.
And then he's like, okay. He's like, when I stop the car, run out and make like you're getting it. Start screaming. So they stop the car. The cops are like, put your hands up. And then they both like, and obviously you could not do this today because something bad would happen.
Get shot.
Yeah, but basically they start screaming, and Tommy's like, bees. Bees everywhere. He's like rolling over the car. He's like, save yourself.
And again, he like takes it way too far. It's like saying all these crazy things.
He's like, they're melting my skin. And the cops are like, oh my God, I'm allergic to bees. And the other cop's like, me too. Like, what are the odds? 2 guys allergic to bees? What is this?
We'll check on you later.
Allergies to bees were huge in the 90s. Like Thomas J. Come on. Like that was the thing. Now it's like, I've never heard of that.
Me too.
I mean, I don't know anybody who's allergic to bees.
I don't either.
Does it even exist anymore? I don't know. But anyway, so the cops drive off, and my favorite part about that scene is Richard like doesn't really know what he's doing because he's like super drunk. So he's kind of just like running around like like just great stuff. And then Tommy's like so psyched at work, and then Richard's like, "Whoa, I just barfed on an anthill." He's like, "Cool."
Yeah.
I don't know why I love that.
I know, it is funny. It's so random.
It's a great scene though.
It's
It's,
really
like
great.
really funny.
So
I
funny.
think it's my favorite one.
Yeah, me too. I was like waiting for it. I was like, oh my God, this is the bee scene. I'm so pumped. We skipped over the deer scene, which is like, I guess pretty famous. So they like they're arguing and they hit a deer. And they're like, oh no, I can't believe, like, they're so sad. They're crying. They're like so upset. So they like, what are we going to do with it? So they decide to like put it in the car and take it with them. Like, I don't know. He's like, oh, should we drop it off at a vet? And they're like, that's not what you do with like dead animals. Anyway. So then like they're driving along and the deer like wakes up and suddenly is like just like looking at them, and they flip out. So they like stop the car and get out. And then the deer, like, this is when the car really gets wrecked because the deer just goes like bananas in the car and just goes totally crazy. So that part's pretty funny and like pretty famous. I just like thought of another one. Oh, I also love the one where they're like the radio. So they're like putting on different songs. He's like, oh, I hate this song, like change it. And he's like, no, I love this song. And they're like arguing. And then they put on, I think it's like a Linda Ronstadt song maybe. Like, don't you remember, you'd always love me, baby.
According to the subtitles.
Okay. Yeah. Good one, subtitles. And so they're like, yeah, this song's okay. Yeah, leave it if you want. Oh, fine. Yeah, sure. And they're just pretending that they both hate it. And then like 2 beats later, they're like belting it out, crying.
Don't you remember you told me you're gonna baby? Yeah, that is a good scene. I love
Hilarious.
that. Love it. Yeah, I think those are my main ones.
Okay, my last one is the flight attendant one. So they like sneak on the airplane. There's no flights available to Chicago, or they have to like go and intersect like the sale between like the Selinsky guy. And so Richard gets an idea, or maybe Tommy does, to like sneak on as flight attendants. At first I thought they were sneaking on as pilots, and I was like, whoa, that's dangerous. Like, do not fly this airplane. You like not know what they're doing. No, they were flight attendants. And so they have to do like the little speech, like, this is this is Tommy and he's a Scorpio and blah, blah, blah. And then they're doing the whole like put on a seatbelt thing. And David Spade or Richard's just being like a little like smarmy asshole. And he's like, this is how a seatbelt works. You put this and this. And if you don't know how to do it, then call Tommy over, like, and he'll come and drive like a whatever,
Hit you
a
on the
hammer
head
in your
'cause
head.
you're
a
dummy.
retard. No, he uses the R word, which
He uses the R.
isn't
He used
cool.
that a couple times.
Yeah,
It was the
isn't cool
90s.
anymore, but it's really funny. Like, cracks me up. And then the kind of famous one from the preview is he's demonstrating like the blow up thing, and he like pulls it, and it like goes really tight around his neck, and he starts like
'Cause
flipping
he takes
out.
the child
the
one
child
instead of
one.
the adult one, right?
And he starts flipping out. And he finds like a lady with like a brooch, and he like grabs it off. Or no, it's a pen. She's a fountain pen.
Yeah.
On her. And he's like stabbing it so it goes down. Like, I always remember that from the preview. Like, so funny, him just like flailing with the little child life vest or whatever on his neck.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Good
A
times.
good
times.
one. Here's a scene I don't like is when that lady comes out of the bathroom and they're like, "Oh, it smells so bad." I'm always like,
I know.
"Oh, old lady poop." Reminds me of like Grandpa Joe and the poop in the bucket. Like, it's just like a weird thing. I also hate the scene where, I mean, I like the scene, but I hate this part of the scene. Or I think it's funny when they're in that diner after they get into a fight.
Yeah.
And Richard's like, "Can I have the shrimp cocktail I saw in the glass?" Like, oh, who orders?
Ew. Oh my God, I got so skeeved out. I was like,
Ew.
first of all,
And it's
Midwest
like-
seafood, right? Ugh.
Yeah.
And then
What?
diner Midwest seafood. Like, what are
And
you
it's
doing?
in a display case? Like, red flags. I just,
Is
that
that
part's
like
funny.
why he puked? I know he was drunk in the car, but maybe that was part of it.
No, that was like a week late. Like
Okay.
a long time after.
I forgot what the timeline was. Okay.
That was like when they hadn't even made a sale yet. God.
All right, because he talks to the lady about like,
Yeah.
I want chicken wings.
Oh,
and she's
but
like,
I do like that part of the scene where, because whenever I'm cleaning shrimp, I'm always like, "Ugh, I hate when you have to deter these things," because that's what he says. which like you shouldn't need to deterred at a establishment.
Exactly.
For sure. I mean, they're
Should
supposed
not
to take care of that.
I've ordered
so.
those.
Red flag yet again.
Yeah.
But yeah, and there's like a bunch of like the other like smaller scenes or moments too, like when Tommy and Michelle are on the boat and like those kids are yelling at them,
Yes.
and Michelle like yells back, is like, I know where you live and I've seen where you sleep, and your mother will cry when she sees what I've done to you. And then they like run away. The scene, I guess we could just talk about Michelle. So Michelle's the love interest. It's always a very interesting double standard because the opposite of this could never happen in a comedy movie. You could never have an overweight woman be dating a perfectly normal sized, beautiful man.
Right. But not only like overweight, but like an overweight dim guy.
Like, yeah, what is the appeal? What I mean, he's very sweet, so I assume like that's what she knows him because they went to high school together. But other than that, it's like where's the appeal here? And so it's very much obvious that like they're just doing that, and like he doesn't need a love. That's what kills me, is that like there's really no point to that. Like he could just be friends with her, and she could still have not caused the crash or whatever.
Right.
I also feel really bad for her because Paul makes it seem like she's the one that fucked everything up for the company and like is responsible for the company shuttering. And that I was just like, oh, poor Michelle. And also those bank tubes, crazy.
I was like, is this normal protocol for like the office these days?
I love those tubes in the bank
I do
drive-through
too.
though.
I
Like
miss
would always
those.
be to that.
I
Well,
really miss
we would
those.
never go to those. I always go to the ATM, but like I'm always like, why? So I mean, that was like so back in the day when you used to like deposit money.
So basically,
You
that
put it
was
in there.
like an ATM, but it was a person as the ATM.
Right.
But you
Yeah, I
would
remember
need to
that.
be like giving them like the either money in that tube, or you'd fill out, your deposit slip. So that was what would be going in the tube.
right.
Now you're just feeding that in through the, through
I mean,
the
it's
ATM.
interesting because those still exist as in addition to the drive-up ATM. At most banks I've been to,
Yeah.
like there's still that window. I guess
But
if you
not
want
the
to talk to
tubes,
someone,
though.
but
Yeah.
maybe they don't. Maybe not the tubes. Well, the best part of the tube was when you would be in the car and then it would come back with a lollipop. Like they saw you in the
totally.
car and you'd be like,
But
yes,
okay,
lollipop.
here's my question. So then, but like, why were the tubes though? Because then they could fulfill like 2 customers at one time. Because you would like drive up and have. Couldn't you just use like a Wasn't there like a thing you pulled out and like you'd put all your shit in there and whatever? Or was it tubes for both spots?
What do you mean both spots?
I feel like
both spots.
I feel like
What
there
is
were
it,
2
McDonald's. There's 2
I
lanes.
feel like there were 2 lanes and like one had the tube because they were too far away, but they'd be able to like
I think
help
that's
you.
how they're like now. Because I remember seeing one like that. I don't know. I have no idea. My
Anyway,
goal in life is
who-
always to avoid as many
Oh,
people
me
as
too.
possible. So I would be caught dead at one of those.
Who uses the
tube
tubes?
things.
Does anyone still use those? Let us
Yes.
know. I mean, I just
Please let us
remember
know.
being a little kid and going along with mom or dad to those. So that's like
I just remember getting a lollipop in the tube.
yeah, feeling about banks.
Good times.
Yeah.
But I love that scene where Rob Lowe's like trying to like sleaze and he like his shirt gets stuck in the tube and
Yeah.
then he's just like
Just,
sitting
like,
there
walks
and
away.
she like hears a noise and then like his shirt just gets totally yanked off and up the tube. It's really funny.
Okay, sorry. I just want to go back to the bank thing. Just thinking about how crazy that would be. Okay, now obviously we have cards for everything, so your money is just like in your debit card. You don't have to worry about it. But let's remember a time where like any transaction you had to do, you needed to have cash, right? So you would have to go to the bank and get
what the check
cash
was
out for whatever you wanted for that week. So like that's what was coming in the tubes. You'd fill out that slip and you'd like a withdrawal
Or you'd
slip.
go inside.
Or
Like
go
this
inside.
was just if you didn't want to go
Right.
inside. Yeah.
Right, exactly. But like, doesn't that seem crazy that like whatever's in your wallet, like that's what you have to like pay for shit? I realize there's like credit cards
I
or
mean,
like whatever,
people
but
probably-
mostly like a cash system, right?
Much better at not spending a shit ton of money like we are because they only
that's
have
the way to
what
go.
you have to spend.
I know
But,
you
mean,
spend so much more when you just
But that's
have.
what a check was for. Was basically what your debit card is for.
Yeah, exactly.
And in most places, at least when we were growing up, took checks.
And here's what else I remember about checks. So like, remember like Stop and Shop or whatever, and like you'd have to give your license, and then they'd be like, write down like your license number and the expiration and like all this
like
shit.
at Stop and Shop. I don't remember that happening at any
Do
other
that
place.
anywhere else?
And then Dad would always like add like $40 to it so that he could get 20 like cash back. And I was always like, wow, I gotta remember that trick when I'm
me
older.
too.
It didn't matter because it was like and now we have ATM cards. The future. Thank God, man. I would have been
does
hopeless.
make things so much easier. Oh
yeah,
my God.
I would have been a
Like,
hopeless
wow.
case if I had to deal with like actually knowing how to balance my checkbook and like
Yeah.
numbers. Like, forget it.
Talk about convenience. Or how about in like, you know, your iPhone where like all that shit's stored. So you're literally just
All
like
that shit's stored.
putting a button like twice, pushing a button twice, and like you've just paid for things. Like it's so wild. I know, it's so
Technology.
crazy. Okay. Anything else? I have two more things, but
I used to get like very sexually aroused by the pool scene of the woman like taking her clothes off and going in the pool because it just seemed very naughty.
okay. First of all, gratuitous
does that?
nudity, like
Yeah.
that is something no woman would do. Like look
No.
around, be like,
It sets up
oh,
like weird standards.
Anybody else here? I'm just gonna put off my
and
bikini
you
and
can
go
clearly
naked.
see David Spade in the window
Yeah.
peering out. Like if she was looking around, she would have seen him. What
Yeah.
the hell? That was so weird.
So weird.
It's such
and
a
just
weird scene
like-
today. But when I was little,
yeah.
I was like, oh yeah.
Ugh, it's just like
But yeah,
so gross.
it's so bizarre. Okay, yeah, I'm done.
Okay. So apparently, while I do believe that Chris Farley did have some natural energy, which made him like who he was, he also used to drink 27 cappuccinos a day.
What?
Including usually 3 before he would do like a scene. So it wasn't
Shit.
all natural energy.
Well, and
I will say.
and I'm sure he was like doing coke and stuff.
And cocaine, exactly. So yeah, so maybe it wasn't any natural energy. Let's be honest. Like, wow, that's insane. I have like a double cappuccino, and I'm like out of my mind. I can't imagine having like 27. That's nuts. Reminds me of that like stat about Andre the Giant, who would drink like
Yeah.
700,
beer.
700 beers and be like finally drunk. So crazy. And then I just want to talk about how this movie is like a fun like portrayal of the Midwest, I'd say, and like Wayne's World is like this, basically like John Hughes movies. Like we've talked about how, and coming from the Northeast, like where the Midwest seems like this like place where I only know it from these movies, and it just seems like so like people all seem nice and it seems wholesome and like this and that. And I love that about these movies. But then like I saw that show How to Make a Murder, and I was like, shit, is this what the Midwest is really like? Ruined my 90s, like built up the Midwest in a
It's
certain
just,
way
like,
for me, and then it really got torn down.
Not. Like, that's really what it's about.
I don't know. I need someone to let me, like, who, if you are a Midwest listener of this podcast, can you just let us know, is it like the Midwest of Tommy Boy, or is it the Midwest of How to Make a Murder? Just like let me know. I know there are different parts of the country, even Ohio, How to Make a Murderer was what? Wisconsin. So yeah.
People want to know.
That
Sweetie wants to know.
Me.
Sweetie needs to know.
I want to know. And it's not that I haven't been to the Midwest. I've been to Chicago. I've been to Michigan. Okay, I've been there. I've never been to Ohio. Flown through it, maybe.
You've been
but
to like just like a random ass town in
Yeah,
Ohio. Like
exactly.
I think that's the test.
all
So
my
who
road
lives
trips
in a
have been
random
like
ass town in Ohio?
down and west. Like I've never gone like straight
Yeah.
through the Midwest.
Maybe we should take a sweetie road
I
trip.
think we should take a sweetie road trip.
And then the road trip will end at golf and stuff.
I know. We've always wanted that.
I know.
Can I bring Sweetie Junior?
Yeah, if she can handle it. If she can,
Can you
handle
handle
it. Cool. All right. Anything else?
Nope. That's it. Good one.
Wonderful. Good flick.
Good flick.
If you live in the Midwest and want to tell us about it, come find us on Twitter at the Sweetie Club or on Instagram at Large Marge. Send us. Thank you, as always, for listening. Bye.
Bye.